My hands were trembling as I tried to turn the key for the third time. Nothing. The lock wouldn't budge. I looked at the number on the door. 304. My apartment. 3 days away visiting my sister in Phoenix. And now this. The hallway was empty, silent, save for the distant hum of the elevator. I tried again, putting my shoulder into the door. The key went in, but it wouldn't turn, as if someone had filled the mechanism with glue. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Had I gone to the wrong floor? Impossible. I had lived here for 20 years. I looked down at my keys, the same ones I always used, with the ceramic keychain Lucas had given me for my 60th birthday. Had something changed while I was gone? I pulled out my phone with clumsy fingers and dialed Lucas. First ring, second, third. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. On the fourth ring, someone picked up. Hello? It was Jessica, my daughter-in-law. Her voice sounded strangely cheerful. Jessica, it's me, Eleanor. I can't get into the apartment. Something is wrong with the lock. There was a silence of 2 seconds. Then I heard something that made my blood run cold. A laugh. Not a nervous laugh. A genuine, almost amused laugh. Oh, Eleanor, we forgot to tell you. Her tone was light, casual, as if she were talking about the weather. We changed the locks yesterday. You know how it is. We needed more security. 18. I pressed the phone against my ear. You changed the locks? But why didn't you tell me? I'm standing out here with my suitcases. It's what? Another laugh, this one lower. Well, here is the thing. The condo is ours now, officially. Lucas and I decided it was time to take the reins. You know, you are getting up there in years. You need a smaller place, something more manageable. My knees almost gave out. I leaned against the hallway wall. What do you mean it's yours? This is my apartment. It was yours, Eleanor. Now the papers are in our name. Everything is legal. Don't worry. Lucas agrees. In fact, it was his idea. I want to talk to Lucas. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. He is busy right now. But relax. You two will talk later. In the meantime, you can stay with a friend or something, right? Oh, and your things. Well, we will see what we do with them. Some of it we are going to need. Other stuff. Maybe you can come pick it up when we have time to get organized. She hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, staring at the closed door of what had been my home for 2 decades. The pink suitcase at my feet suddenly weighed tons. I could see a line of light under the door. Inside were my things. The photos of my late husband, the dresses I wore to my children's weddings, my grandson's toys, the china I inherited from my mother. Everything was in there, and I was out here. A neighbor walked by and looked at me with curiosity. I pretended to be looking for something in my purse until she disappeared. I couldn't let them see me like this. I couldn't collapse in the hallway like a homeless person, but my legs wouldn't respond. 5 seconds of absolute silence passed while my brain tried to process what had just happened. My son? My Lucas? The boy I raised alone after his father died? The same boy whose entire college tuition I paid for? He did this to me? I dialed Margaret. My friend answered on the first ring. Elle, how was the trip? You're back already? Margaret. My voice cracked. I need you to come over. I am outside my apartment and I can't get in. What? Did you lose your keys? No, they changed the locks. Jessica says that. She says the house belongs to them now. Silence on the other end. Then, don't move. I'm on my way. 15 minutes. She hung up. I let myself slide to the floor, my back against the wall. The hallway was cold. Outside, it was beginning to get dark. Through the window at the end of the corridor, I could see the city lights flickering on one by one. 23 years ago, when I moved here with my 2 young children, I never imagined it would end like this. Sitting on the floor, outside my own door, waiting for someone to come rescue me. The elevator made a metallic noise. The doors opened, and Margaret appeared, wearing her mustard-colored sweater with her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She was holding a plastic bag. She saw me on the floor, and her expression changed completely. Oh my God, Eleanor. She knelt beside me. What happened exactly? I told her everything. Every word Jessica said, every laugh, every pause. Margaret listened with her lips pressed together, her hand squeezing mine harder and harder. That woman, she whispered. That damn woman. Lucas agreed. Margaret? She said it was his idea. I don't believe it. Lucas adores you. There has to be something else. Then why didn't he answer the phone? Why did he let Jessica tell me that? Margaret didn't have an answer. She helped me up and took my suitcase. Let's go to my place. We will figure out what to do tomorrow. Right now, you need to rest. I can't leave like this. All my things are in there. End quote. And they will still be there tomorrow. Come on. Her voice was firm but gentle. The voice of someone who has been your friend for 30 years and knows exactly when to be soft and when to be authoritative. We walked toward the elevator. Before entering, I looked back one last time. Door 304 remained closed. The light underneath was still on. Inside, my whole life. Outside, me. Separated by a new lock that my own keys could no longer open. In Margaret's car, as we drove across the city, I tried to call Lucas another 6 times. All went straight to voicemail. I sent messages. None were read. It was as if he had disappeared from the face of the earth. Or worse, as if he had decided I no longer existed to him. Tomorrow we are going to see a lawyer, Margaret said, eyes fixed on the traffic. I know someone, Robert. He is good, and he won't charge you for a consultation. I don't have money for lawyers, Margaret. Is bitterline. That is why I am telling you, he won't charge for the consultation. He just wants to hear your case. I nodded, though I didn't even have the strength for that. Through the window, I watched the streets I knew by heart pass by. The bakery, where I bought muffins on Sundays. The park where I took my grandson to play. The pharmacy where I picked up my prescriptions. Everything remained the same. The world kept turning. People walked, laughed, lived, and I was in that car, feeling as if someone had just ripped the heart out of my chest and thrown it in the trash. When we arrived at Margaret's apartment, I sat on her beige sofa and finally allowed myself to cry. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed in Margaret's guest room, staring at the white ceiling, counting the hours. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lucas's face when he was a child, 5 years old, in his school uniform, waiting for me at the door after class. 10 years old, crying because the other kids teased him for not having a father. 15, hugging me when I told him I couldn't buy him the phone he wanted because we barely had enough for food. And I always found a way. Always. I worked double shifts at the hospital for 8 years to pay for his college. I sold my mother's jewelry to give him the down payment for his first car. When he married Jessica, I gave them $20,000 I had saved for my retirement. So you can start off right, I told them. And Jessica hugged me that day, with tears in her eyes, calling me Mom. At what moment did everything change? At 7 in the morning, Margaret knocked on the door with a cup of coffee. Robert can see us at 10. How do you feel? Like I was hit by a truck. Perfect. That means you are alive. She tried to make me smile. It didn't work. Robert's office was downtown, on the 3rd floor of an old building with creaky stairs. He received us with a firm handshake. He must have been about 50. Gray hair at the temples, brown eyes that looked directly at you, the kind of man who inspires immediate confidence. Tell me everything from the beginning, he said, taking out a notepad. I told him. From when I bought the apartment 20 years ago, a widow with 2 small children, how Lucas grew up there, how he met Jessica in college, how they got married 8 years ago, how I gave them money to start, how Jessica slowly began, suggesting that I was getting too old to live alone in such a large place, how she insisted I move in with them. But I refused, because I valued my independence, how 6 months ago, Lucas asked me to put the apartment in his name, just in case something happens to you, Mom, to avoid probate court. And I, trusting and stupid, did it. Robert stopped writing. He looked at me over his glasses. You signed property transfer papers. Yes. Lucas said it was just a preventive formality, that the apartment was still mine, that it was just to facilitate the inheritance. Did you read what you signed? The silence was my answer. Robert sighed. It wasn't a judgmental sigh. It was the sigh of someone who has seen this story too many times. Mrs. Eleanor, legally, if you signed the property transfer, the apartment now belongs to Lucas, and if Lucas decided to transfer it to Jessica, or put it in both their names, he has every legal right to do so. I felt the floor open up beneath my feet. But it was my home. I paid for it. I worked 20 years to pay for it. I know. And morally, what they did is repugnant. But legally, he shook his head. It is complicated. We could try to prove there was coercion, that they tricked you, but we would need proof. Messages, witnesses, recordings. Do you have anything like that? No. I trusted my son. I understand. Robert leaned back in his chair. Look, I can try sending them a legal letter, pressure them, see if they get scared, and return the apartment. But if they decide to fight, this could drag on for months, years, and you will need money for legal fees, court costs, filings. How much money? $5,000 minimum. Maybe more. I didn't have $5,000. I barely had $800 in my savings account. My pension was $400 a month. I did the math mentally and realized something devastating. I was ruined, homeless, without sufficient savings. At 70 years old, Margaret put her hand over mine. I can lend you something, Elle. I am not going to take your money, Margaret. You aren't taking it. I am giving it to you. Robert interrupted us. There is another option. I can try to negotiate with them. Maybe they will agree to give you some money for the property. A settlement. It won't be fair, but at least you will have something to start over. Start over. The words sounded bitter in my mouth. I am 70 years old. Where am I going to start over? Nobody answered. Because there was no good answer. We left Robert's office with a legal letter he would send to Lucas and Jessica. A formal letter demanding explanations and proposing mediation. It sounded official and intimidating on paper, but I knew it wouldn't work. If Lucas really wanted to take my house, a letter wouldn't stop him. Margaret drove me back to her apartment. On the way, we passed in front of my building. I couldn't help but look up, toward the 3rd floor. The windows of my apartment, the cream-colored curtains I had sewn myself. Jessica had probably already taken them down. She was probably already redecorating with her modern, minimalist things she liked so much, erasing any trace that I ever lived there. Do you want us to try knocking? Margaret asked. No, I don't want to see her. Not yet. That afternoon, sitting on Margaret's balcony, I tried calling Lucas one more time. This time he did answer. His voice sounded tense, almost a whisper. Mom, I can't talk right now. Lucas, just tell me why. Give me a reason. Just one reason that makes sense. It's complicated. Then explain it to me. I am your mother. You threw me out of my house. Don't I deserve at least an explanation? I heard noise in the background, Jessica's voice saying something I couldn't make out. Then Lucas, even quieter. It was for the best, Mom. For everyone. Don't call anymore. He hung up. I stayed with the phone in my hand, tears running down my cheeks uncontrollably. Margaret came out to the balcony and sat next to me, without saying anything. Sometimes a friend's silence is worth more than 1,000 words of comfort. The sun began to set. The sky turned orange and violet. It was beautiful. The kind of sunset I used to photograph from my balcony and send to Lucas with messages like, "Look what beauty God gave us today." And he would respond with a heart. Always a heart. When did my son stop loving me? 4 days passed. 4 days living in Margaret's guest room, wearing her clothes because mine were still locked in my apartment. 4 days calling Lucas and receiving silence. Robert's letter was sent, and we never got a reply. It was like shouting into a bottomless pit. On the 5th night, Margaret made chamomile tea and sat across from me at her small kitchen table. You need to tell me everything, Elle. From the beginning, something doesn't add up. Lucas wasn't like this. She was right. Lucas wasn't like this. At least not the Lucas I knew. I closed my eyes and went back. 12 years ago. Lucas was 26. He had just finished college. I was working as a nurse on the night shift at General Hospital. I would get home at 7 in the morning, sleep 4 hours, get up to cook, clean, pay bills. My life was a hamster wheel that never stopped. But it was my wheel, my apartment, my effort. Lucas got a job at a marketing firm. He didn't earn much, but it was a start. He still lived with me. He gave me $300 a month to help with expenses. We went out for breakfast on Sundays to the diner on the corner. We talked about everything, his dreams, his fears, the girls he liked. I was his confidant, his safe harbor. Then he met Jessica. I remember perfectly the day he brought her home. Tall, thin, long straight black hair, emerald green dress, High heels even though we were just eating at home. Perfect smile. Too perfect. She hugged me and said, "Mrs. Eleanor, Lucas talks so much about you. It is a pleasure to meet the woman who raised such a wonderful man." I liked her. Oh, I wanted to believe that. The first few months were good. Jessica came to dinner on Fridays. She helped me wash the dishes. She asked about my work at the hospital. She seemed genuinely interested. Lucas was radiant, in love like I had never seen him, and I was happy for him. After all, what mother doesn't want to see her son happy? A year later, Lucas told me he wanted to get married. He and Jessica had already talked. They wanted a small, intimate wedding. I offered them the $20,000 I had saved. It was all I had left after paying for his college, his car, his medical emergencies when he had appendicitis at 22. Lucas cried when I gave him the check. "Mom, this is too much. I can't accept it." "Of course you can. It is for your future. So you and Jessica start off right." Jessica hugged me that day. She cried too. "Mom, Eleanor," she said to me, "I promise to take care of Lucas like you have. I promise to make him happy." The wedding was beautiful. Small, like they wanted. I wore a coral dress I bought on sale. Jessica was beautiful in her simple white dress. Lucas couldn't stop smiling. We danced together, mother and son, to a song I chose. "Thank you for everything, Mom," he whispered in my ear. "I don't know what I would do without you." The first 2 years of marriage, everything seemed perfect. They visited my apartment every Sunday. We ate together. We laughed. Jessica brought pastries she bought from an expensive bakery downtown. Lucas told me stories about his job. I felt complete. My son was happy. He had a good wife. Grandchildren would come soon. But then, something started to change. It was subtle at first. Jessica began making comments. "Mom, don't you think this apartment is too big for you alone? It must be exhausting to keep it clean. Oh, Lucas worries so much about you living here alone. What if you fall and no one notices? Oh, there are some lovely senior living communities with nurses and everything. It would be safer." I ignored them. I was 70 years old, yes, but perfectly capable of taking care of myself. I was still working part-time at the hospital. I did yoga twice a week. I walked every morning. I didn't need to be locked up in a home as if I were an invalid. The Sunday visits began to space out. Every 2 weeks. Then once a month. Then every 2 months. There was always an excuse. Jessica had work. Lucas was tired. They had a family commitment on her side. I tried not to take it personally. Young people have their lives. It is normal. 3 years ago, my grandson was born. Leo. The most beautiful baby I had ever seen. I went to the hospital the day he was born. I held that boy and felt my heart multiply by 1,000. "I am going to be the best grandmother in the world," I promised Lucas. But Jessica had other ideas. "Mom, I really appreciate your help, but we have everything under control. We don't want to bother you." That's what she said when I offered to watch Leo while they worked. "Besides, you are getting older. A baby is a lot of work. We don't want you to get hurt." It hurt. But I accepted it. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was too old to chase a crawling baby all over the house. Visits to see Leo had to be coordinated weeks in advance. And they were always short, an hour max. Jessica always found a reason for me to leave. Leo has to sleep. Leo is cranky. Leo needs his routine. Lucas just nodded. He never defended me. He never said, "Mom, stay longer." A year ago, Lucas arrived alone at my apartment one afternoon. Without warning, he looked nervous. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important." I sat on the sofa, heart racing. "What is it? Are you sick?" No, it's about the apartment." He sat next to me. He took my hands. "Look, you aren't going to live forever. I'm sorry, I know it sounds awful, but it is the truth. And when you are gone, this place is going to go into horrible probate procedures, taxes, lawyers. It can take years. Jessica and I were researching, and the best option is for you to transfer the apartment to my name now. That way, when something happens, everything is easier. But you keep living here, obviously. It is just a paper. A formality." I looked him in the eyes. "My son, my Lucas, are you sure it is just a formality?" "Completely. "Mom, I would never hurt you, you know that." And I believed him. Because he was my son. Because I had raised him. Because I trusted him more than anyone in the world. I signed the papers 3 weeks later. A notary came to my apartment. Lucas was there, smiling, assuring me everything was fine. Jessica sent a message. "Thank you for trusting us, Mom Eleanor. Lucas and I will always take care of you." That was the last time she called me Mom. The following months, things got strange. Lucas stopped answering my calls with the same frequency. When he did, the conversations were short, cold. Jessica didn't even fake kindness anymore. On the few occasions I saw them, she treated me like a stranger, like a nuisance. 6 months ago, I stopped seeing Leo completely. "He is in a difficult stage, sweetie. Better when he grows up a little more." That was all they told me. And now, telling all this to Margaret at her kitchen table, with the cold tea between my hands, I finally understood. Jessica planned this from the beginning. From the day she met Lucas and saw his mother had a paid-off apartment in a good part of the city, she studied me. She charmed me. She earned my trust. She waited patiently, and when she had everything secured, she discarded me like trash. And Lucas, my Lucas, let it happen. Margaret listened to every word without interrupting. When I finished, she had tears in her eyes. "That woman is a monster. And Lucas, God, Lucas is a coward. He is my son, Margaret. And he betrayed you. He let his wife manipulate you, use you, and throw you away. You can't defend him just because he came out of your womb." She was right. But it hurt to admit it. It hurt to accept that the boy I carried on my back when he had a fever, the teenager who cried in my arms when his first love rejected him, the young man I applauded at his graduation, that same man had destroyed me without blinking. The next day, I received a message from an unknown number. "Mrs. Eleanor, this is Jessica. Lucas and I have talked. We understand this is difficult for you, but it was a necessary decision. We are willing to offer you $5,000 as compensation for the inconvenience. It is a generous offer considering legally we owe you nothing. You have 1 week to decide. After that, the offer is withdrawn. $5,000. For an apartment worth at least $250,000. For 20 years of payments. For my home." I showed the message to Robert that same afternoon. He read it, shook his head. "It is an insult. But legally, Mrs. Eleanor, we can't force them to do more. I already explained. You signed the transfer. They are the owners. And if I reject the offer, then you receive nothing. And believe me, $5,000 is better than zero." I couldn't sleep again that night. $5,000. Divided by 12 months, it was $417 a month. Added to my pension of $400, I had $817 monthly. I couldn't rent even a studio in a decent area with that money, much less eat, pay utilities, medicine. The next morning, Margaret entered my room with the newspaper. "Look, there are apartments for rent in the Oakwood neighborhood. They aren't luxurious, but they are safe. $800 a month for a studio." "Margaret, I don't have $800 a month. I will barely have that in total." "Then we get them to lower the price. Or you look for a job." A job? I am 70 years old. Who is going to hire me? You were a nurse. There are clinics, hospitals, private homes that need caregivers. We can look." The idea of going back to work full-time at my age terrified me. But the alternative was worse. Being a burden on Margaret, or ending up in a shelter, or on the street. I accepted Jessica's offer. $5,000 miserable dollars for my entire life. Robert prepared the papers. I signed with a trembling hand. 3 days later, the money appeared in my account, along with a message from Jessica. "You can come by tomorrow between 2 and 4 in the afternoon to pick up your personal belongings. Be punctual. We will only give you 2 hours." I arrived at 2 o'clock sharp. Margaret came with me. Lucas opened the door. He looked haggard, thinner, deep dark circles under his eyes. He didn't look me in the eye. "Your things are in boxes in your room." Well, in what used to be your room. Jessica is turning it into an office. I entered my apartment and almost didn't recognize it. The furniture I had chosen with such care had disappeared. In its place, modern things, cold, soulless. The walls I painted peach were now white. The family photos that hung in the hallway had been replaced by abstract art that meant nothing. My room. My sanctuary. It was empty except for 6 cardboard boxes stacked in the center. 20 years of life reduced to 6 boxes. I opened the first one, clothes; the second, photos; the third, books. In the fourth, I found my mother's china wrapped in newspaper. Several pieces were broken. I could see the loose shards at the bottom of the box. No one had bothered to pack with care. "Where is the rest?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Jessica appeared in the doorway, holding Leo in her arms. "My grandson. 3 years old, and he didn't recognize me. He looked at me as if I were a stranger. The rest we donated. Old things we didn't need. We thought you wouldn't need them either, considering you will now be living in a smaller place." Donated. I felt the room spin. "You donated my mother's furniture? My husband's desk? The paintings I bought on my trip to Santa Fe? They were just things, Mom. You accumulated too much. This is better, more minimalist, healthier." Margaret had to hold me because my legs gave out. "You are a wretched woman," she told Jessica. "A heartless wretch." Jessica just smiled. "Careful with the accusations. We could sue for defamation." Lucas remained in the hallway, motionless, looking at the floor. He said nothing. He didn't defend me. He didn't say anything to his wife. He was just there, like a ghost of what was once my son. We carried the 6 boxes down between Margaret and me. Lucas didn't offer help. 3 trips to the car. On the third, I crossed paths with Mrs. Martinez from apartment 302. She had known me since I moved in. "Eleanor? What are you doing with so many boxes?" I couldn't answer. "Margaret did it for me. She is going on a long trip, a white lie. Easier than explaining the truth." In the last box, I found something that broke me completely. A letter, written by Lucas when he was 17. I found it in his high school things. It said, "Mom, I know sometimes I am difficult, and I don't say it enough, but you are my hero. Everything I am is thanks to you. Someday I am going to take care of you like you have taken care of me. I promise. I love you more than anything in the world." The uneven handwriting of a teenager, the honest words of a son who loved his mother. Where was that Lucas now? What did Jessica do to him to transform him into this stranger who let me carry boxes without helping me? Back at Margaret's house, I opened every box looking for specific things. My wedding photo album. It wasn't there. The letters my husband wrote me while we were dating. Neither were they. The pearl necklace my grandmother left me. Gone. The blanket I knitted when Lucas was a baby. I didn't find it. Everything that had sentimental value had been donated or thrown away. They only left me the basics. Clothes, some books, loose photos, objects without importance to them. But that were my history, my identity. That night I called my younger daughter, Sarah. She lived in Houston with her husband. We hadn't spoken in months because we had drifted apart since she got married and moved. I told her everything. "Mom, I can't believe it. Lucas was always the perfect son. How could he do this to you?" "I don't know, honey. I don't know. Do you want to come to Houston?" "I can." "Well, we don't have much space, but we can manage. I am not going to be a burden on you too." "You wouldn't be a burden," but we both knew she would be. Sarah and her husband could barely handle their own expenses. Adding another person to their small apartment would be a disaster. I hung up feeling lonelier than ever. 70 years old, without a home, with $5,000 that would evaporate in months, with a son who betrayed me and a daughter who was too far away to help me, with boxes full of broken pieces of a life that no longer existed. Margaret came in with 2 glasses of wine. "I know it doesn't solve anything, but you need this." I took the glass. The wine was warm, cheap, but in that moment, it tasted like the only thing I had left, the kindness of a friend who hadn't abandoned me. "What am I going to do, Margaret?" "You are going to survive, because that is what you do, what you have always done." But for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure I could do it. I spent the next week looking for apartments. Margaret accompanied me to see 12 options. All were depressing. Tiny studios with water stains on the walls, buildings in dangerous zones where the sound of sirens was constant background music, bathrooms with broken tiles, kitchens where barely one person fit. And all, absolutely all, asked for first month, last month, and deposit. That meant spending $2,400 up front, almost half of everything I had. Finally, I found one. Oakwood neighborhood, as Margaret had suggested. 3rd floor, no elevator. 400 square feet that smelled of pine and bleach. The landlord was a man of about 60, named Mike. He had a prominent belly and a kind smile. "It is small, but safe," he said, knocking on the wall as if demonstrating solidity. "Includes water, electricity, and gas is separate. $750 a month. $750. 50 less than what I had seen in other places. Why so cheap? Because the building is old. It doesn't have modern amenities, but it is honest. No surprises." I signed the lease that same afternoon. $2,250 from my account. I had $2,750 left. With luck, 4 months of rent if I didn't eat, didn't get sick, didn't need anything. I moved 2 days later. Margaret, Robert, and Mike helped me carry the boxes up, 3 floors of steep stairs. By the time we finished, we were all out of breath and sweating. My new home was a rectangular box with a window that looked out onto an alley. I could see the wall of the building opposite. Nothing more. No sky, no trees, just gray bricks. "It has potential," Margaret said, trying to sound optimistic. "With some nice curtains, some plants." She didn't finish the sentence because we both knew it was a lie. This didn't have potential. It was a place to survive, not to live. That night, I slept on an inflatable mattress Margaret lent me. The unopened boxes surrounded me like silent witnesses of my fall. I could hear the neighbors through the walls, a couple arguing, a baby crying, a television at full volume, sounds of lives continuing while mine crumbled. The next day, I started looking for work. I visited 3 private clinics. In all of them, they told me the same thing. "You are overqualified," or "We are looking for someone younger," or the most honest one. "At your age, ma'am, health insurance is too expensive for us." 70 years old and I was invisible, too old to work, too young to die and stop being a problem. In the 4th clinic, a small practice in Little Village, the receptionist looked at me with something resembling compassion. "Look, we don't have official openings, but Dr. Stevens sometimes needs help with elderly patients. Simple things, taking vital signs, accompanying them to tests, pays by the day, in cash. It isn't much." "How much?" $50 a day. When there is work, dime. $50. If I managed to work 4 days a week, it would be $800 a month. Added to my pension, $1,200. Could I pay the rent, eat, survive? Barely. "When can I start?" "Leave me your number. I will call you if something comes up." I walked out of there with a small spark of hope. It wasn't much, but it was something. That afternoon, Margaret appeared at my door with a shopping bag. I brought the basics: sheets, towels, some plates, and this. She pulled out a framed poster. It was a beach at sunset, bright orange and pink colors. "So you remember the world is still beautiful, even when it doesn't seem like it." We hung the poster on the only free wall. It was absurdly optimistic in that depressing space, but something in me clung to that image, to that promise that somewhere the sun still set over the ocean, that beauty still existed. Over the next few days, I established a routine. I woke up at 6, walked 30 minutes in the nearby park, came back, breakfast of coffee and toast, called clinics, hospitals, retirement homes, asking for work, received rejections, ate something simple at noon: rice, beans, eggs, cheap things that filled you up. In the afternoons, I tried to organize my space, arranging the few belongings I had left so the place looked less sad. It didn't work. The nights were the worst. The silence after the neighbors went to sleep, just me and my thoughts. I thought about Lucas, about Leo, about my apartment that was now theirs. I imagined Jessica decorating my room, erasing every trace that I ever existed there. I imagined Lucas sleeping in what was my living room, without remorse, without guilt. How does someone sleep after betraying their own mother? 1 week later, the clinic called. "Mrs. Eleanor, Dr. Stevens needs help tomorrow. An 82-year-old patient needs accompaniment to an MRI. Can you do it? Yes, of course. I arrived 15 minutes early. Dr. Stevens was a man of about 55, tall, completely white hair, thick-rimmed glasses. He shook my hand firmly. Eleanor, right? Look, Mr. Campos is a complicated patient. He has early Alzheimer's. He gets confused easily. I need you to accompany him. Keep him calm. Make sure he follows instructions. Can you do that? I was a nurse for 35 years, doctor. I can handle it. And I did. Mr. Campos was a sweet old man who thought I was his daughter. I let him believe it. I held his hand during the scan. I told him stories to distract him from the noise of the machine. When we finished, he was calm and smiling. Dr. Stevens paid me $50 in cash. You did an excellent job. Can you come back Thursday? I have another patient who needs accompaniment to chemotherapy. I'll be there. I walked out of the clinic with $50 in my pocket, feeling almost human again. It wasn't much. But it was mine, earned with my effort. Nobody had stolen it from me. Nobody had taken it away. That night, Margaret invited me to dinner at her apartment. She had prepared roasted chicken with vegetables, real food, not the sad leftovers I had been eating. Tell me how it went, she said, pouring me wine. I told her about Mr. Campos, about Dr. Stevens, about the $50. Margaret smiled. See? You are rebuilding, step by step. It doesn't feel like rebuilding. It feels like barely surviving. Sometimes they are the same thing. After dinner, Margaret brought out a laptop. Look, I found something that might interest you. There is a community center near your new apartment. They offer free classes, yoga, painting, dance, cooking. I thought maybe. Classes? Margaret, I don't have time for classes. I need to work. You need to live, Elle. Not just exist. Just working and sleeping isn't a life. I looked at the screen. The community center looked welcoming. People smiling in the photos. Classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the afternoon. Yoga at 5. I could go after work if I got morning shifts. I'll think about it, I said, though I wasn't convinced. But that night, lying on my inflatable mattress, I thought about Margaret's words. Living versus existing. There was a difference. And lately, I had only been existing, breathing, eating, sleeping, repeating. There was no laughter. There was no joy. There was nothing but pain and survival. Maybe she was right. Maybe I needed something else. On Thursday, I went to the clinic. The chemotherapy patient was a 68-year-old woman named Alice. Short gray hair, bright green eyes despite the cancer that was consuming her. During the 4 hours of treatment, we talked. She told me about her life. 3 children, 7 grandchildren, a husband who died 5 years ago. At first I thought I wouldn't survive without him, she told me. 50 years together. And suddenly, alone. But you know what I discovered? That there was still life in me. There were still things to do, people to meet, sunrises to see, and cancer. Cancer is just another thing I have to face. Like I faced widowhood. Like I faced poverty when I was young. Like I faced everything else. I am not going to let it define me. Her words stayed with me. When Dr. Stevens paid me that day, instead of going straight home, I walked to the community center. It was an old building, but well-maintained. Light yellow walls, a small garden in the front with purple and red flowers. I went in. The receptionist, a young woman of about 25 with a nose ring, smiled at me. Can I help you? I'm here for the yoga classes. Perfect. They are Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5. Free. You just need to register here. I filled out the form. Name, age, address. In the section, why do you want to take this class? I wrote, because I need to remember how to live. The following Tuesday, I went to my first yoga class. There were 12 of us women, all over 50. The instructor was a thin woman of about 40 named Elena, soft voice, fluid movements. Yoga isn't about being perfect, she said as she guided us into postures. It is about being present, about breathing, about finding peace in movement. I wasn't perfect. My knees creaked, my back protested. But for the first time in weeks, my mind went quiet. I didn't think about Lucas. I didn't think about Jessica. I didn't think about my lost apartment. I just breathed. I just moved. I just existed in that moment. After class, One of the women approached me. She was older than me, maybe 75, white hair pulled back in a messy bun. First time, right? It shows on your face. That mix of confusion and relief. It is so obvious. We all arrived here like that. I'm Margaret. By the way, Margaret Hernandez. No, sorry, I'm Eleanor. I have a friend named Margaret and I got confused. We laughed. It was the first genuine laugh that left my mouth in weeks. The yoga classes became my refuge. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 5 in the afternoon, without fail, the group of women welcomed me with unexpected warmth. Besides Margaret Hernandez, there was Rose, a former elementary school teacher with arthritis in her hands, but a contagious smile. There was Alice, yes, my chemotherapy patient, who turned out to take the classes too, when she felt strong enough. And there was Patricia, a recent widow looking to fill her empty days. We should go for coffee after class someday, Rose suggested one afternoon while we were rolling up our mats. There is a coffee shop 2 blocks away. They have delicious muffins. Whenever, buddy. I can't spend money on coffee shops, I said before thinking. Then I regretted it. I sounded so poor, so defeated. But Rose just nodded. I understand perfectly. I couldn't at first either. My pension barely reached, but I discovered that a coffee once a week, shared with good company, is worth more than staying home, saving those $3 and feeling miserable. She was right. We went that afternoon. The coffee shop was small, with worn wooden tables and checkered tablecloths. I ordered the cheapest coffee. They ordered everything: cappuccinos, milkshakes, slices of cake. They insisted on sharing with me. That is how we work here, explained Alice, passing me a piece of her apple pie. We have all been at rock bottom at some point. We all know what it is to have nothing. So when we can, we share. I told them my story. Not everything. I couldn't. It was too fresh, too painful. But I told them enough. That my son had kept my apartment. That I was living in a tiny studio. That I worked when I could at Dr. Stevens' clinic. None judged. None looked at me with pity. Just understanding. My daughter doesn't speak to me, said Patricia, the widow. 3 years ago I lent her $15,000 for her business. The business failed. She told me it was my fault for pressuring her to accept the money. It wasn't. She asked for it. But now, I am the villain of her story. I haven't seen my grandchildren since then. It's a morat. My son lives in California, added Rose. He calls me on my birthday and Christmas, twice a year, as an obligation. Like checking a box on his to-do list. I haven't seen him in person for 20 years. Stories of mothers broken by ungrateful children. I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only one. That didn't make it hurt less, but it made the pain more bearable. Shared. I started going to the coffee shop every Thursday after yoga. It became a tradition. My small weekly luxury. $3 that I could have saved, but invested in my sanity. Work at Dr. Stevens' clinic became regular. 3, sometimes 4 days a week. $50 a day. It wasn't enough to thrive, but it was enough to survive with dignity. The doctor was good to me, kind. Patient when I made mistakes with the new computer system they used. Eleanor, have you thought about getting certified as a professional caregiver? He asked me one day. There is a lot of demand, and they would pay better than what I can offer you. At my age? Precisely because of your age. Elderly patients feel more comfortable with someone of their generation, someone who understands them. He gave me information about a certification course. It lasted 6 weeks, cost $300. $300 I didn't have. I kept the brochure anyway. That night, in my tiny apartment, I did the math. If I worked 4 days a week for 2 months, I could save the $300. I would have to eat even cheaper. Rice and beans almost every day. No coffee on Thursdays, no extra expenses. But it was possible. For the first time in months, I felt something resembling hope. A plan. A future. Small. Modest. But mine. 2 weeks later, during yoga class, Elena announced there would be a special class on Saturday. Yoga at sunrise in the park. To welcome the new day with intention and gratitude. I'll wait for you at 6 in the morning. Too early for me, joked Rose, but I went. I arrived at the park at 5:50. The sky was still dark, barely painting itself gray on the horizon. Elena was already there, setting up mats. and there was someone else. A man. Tall, thin, white hair, cut very short. He looked my age, maybe a little older. "Good morning," he greeted me with a smile. "I'm Arthur." "Like the king?" He laughed. "Yes, like the king. But I'm not royalty. I'm a retired history professor, and addicted to yoga, apparently." 18 all. We did the class while the sun came up. It was magical. The golden light filtering through the trees, the fresh morning air, the silence of the park before the city woke up. I felt alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. Afterward, Arthur approached while I rolled up my mat. "Do you come often to the regular classes? I hadn't seen you." "I go Tuesdays and Thursdays in the afternoon. You must come at another time." "Exactly. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays in the morning. But Elena convinced me to try this special class. I don't regret it." We walked together toward the park exit. Easy conversation, light. He talked about his years as a professor, about his love for history, about his wife who died 4 years ago. Cancer. It took her quickly. 6 months from diagnosis to the end. "I'm sorry." "Me too. But I learned that grief doesn't have to consume you. You can carry it with you and keep living. In fact, it is the only thing you can do." "It is not a bit." We reached the corner where our paths separated. "It was a pleasure meeting you, Eleanor. I hope to see you at another special class." "Likewise, Arthur." I went home with a strange sensation, warmth, as if something good had just entered my life. Not romance, not at my age, but maybe friendship, company, someone who understood loss. The next Thursday, after yoga, while we drank coffee, I told the girls about Arthur. Rose looked at me with bright eyes. "Oh, Elle, is he handsome?" "It isn't about that. Everything is always a little about that." Alice laughed. "Even if it is just in the background. He is a widower. I am. Well, technically I am also a widow. But I am broken. My son destroyed me. I don't have room for anything else." "Precisely because of that, you need room for something else," said Patricia, the other widow. "When my husband died, I thought I would die with him, that my life had ended. But one day, a man at the supermarket helped me reach a can on the top shelf. He smiled at me, and I realized I could still feel things. Little things, gratitude, warmth, humanity. We don't end when someone hurts us, Eleanor. We just change." Her words resonated in me for days. Life established a rhythm. Work at the clinic, yoga twice a week, coffee on Thursdays, morning walks, simple meals, nights reading old books I found at a garage sale for 50 cents each. It wasn't the life I had imagined. It wasn't the life I had built for 70 years. But it was a life. And slowly, very slowly, it started to hurt less. There were moments. Sure, moments where I woke up in the middle of the night and forgot where I was. I looked for the window that faced the park in my old apartment and only found the wall of the building opposite. Moments where I saw a grandmother with her grandson in the park and my chest tightened thinking of Leo. Moments where I walked past a store and saw something Lucas had loved as a child, toy dinosaurs, chocolates with almonds, and had to stop to breathe. But those moments spaced out. Each time less frequent, less intense. One Saturday, 6 weeks after moving into my studio, Elena announced another sunrise class. I went again. Arthur was there too. This time, after class, he invited me to breakfast. "I know a place that makes the best pancakes in the city." My treat. I hesitated. Not because of him. Because of me. Because of the fear of starting to depend on someone's kindness. Of opening up. Of trusting. "They are just pancakes, Eleanor," he said with a smile. "Not a lifetime commitment." We went. And he was right. The pancakes were extraordinary. We talked for 2 hours. About everything and nothing. About books. About movies. About how the city had changed. About our children. I told him about Lucas. About Jessica. About everything. He listened without interrupting. "My son doesn't speak to me much either," he said when I finished. "He lives in Spain. Decided America wasn't enough for him. I see him once a year if I'm lucky. Not because he is angry with me, simply because his life is there and mine is here. Sometimes children grow up and drift away. It hurts, but it is natural. Your situation, yours is different. Yours was betrayal." "Yes." "Have you forgiven him?" "I don't know if I can." "You don't have to." Not now. Maybe never. Forgiveness is for you, not for him. When you are ready, if you ever are, it will be on your terms. Wise words from a man who clearly had made his own peace with loss and disappointment. Breakfast with Arthur became routine. Every other Saturday, after sunrise yoga. Nothing formal, nothing romantic. Just two older people sharing coffee and conversation. He told me stories of his teaching years. I told him about my patients at the clinic. We laughed. Sometimes I forgot, for whole minutes, the weight I carried. I managed to save the $300 for the certification course. It took me 3 months of eating rice with eggs almost every day, 3 months without Thursday coffees, which the girls understood completely, 3 months of walking instead of taking the bus when I could. But I did it. I enrolled in the course. It started in 2 weeks, 6 weeks of night classes, 3 times a week. Dr. Stevens gave me permission to adjust my schedule to attend. I am proud of you, Eleanor, he told me. Many people in your situation would have given up. You are fighting. I have no other choice. There are always choices. Giving up is one. You chose to fight. That means something. The night before the course started, Margaret came to visit me. She brought a bottle of cheap wine and a bag of tacos. Preemptive celebration, she announced, for your new beginning. It's SOLA. We ate sitting on the floor of my studio because I only had one chair. We drank wine in plastic cups because I still hadn't bought glasses. And for the first time in months, I felt something resembling happiness. You know what is most incredible? Margaret said, cheeks pink from the wine, that despite everything that happened, you are still here. Stronger, more yourself than when you lived in that big apartment taking care of everyone but you. I don't feel stronger, but you are. The Eleanor of 6 months ago would have stayed paralyzed. You moved. You rebuilt yourself. That is strength. Maybe she was right. Maybe there was strength in surviving, in getting up every morning, in continuing to breathe when everything inside me wanted to stop. The course was intense. We learned care techniques for patients with reduced mobility, how to handle basic medical emergencies, hygiene protocols, legal aspects of professional care. There were 20 students. I was the oldest. Some looked at me with curiosity. A 70-year-old woman studying again, but most treated me with respect. I met a classmate named Alice. Not my yoga Alice. Another Alice, younger, maybe 50 years old, recently divorced. My husband left with a woman 20 years younger, she told me during a break. Left me with nothing. I have to reinvent myself or starve. I am reinventing myself too, I told her. Why? If it isn't too personal to ask, I told her a summarized version. My son, the apartment, the betrayal. She shook her head. Children can be cruel. My daughter took her father's side, says I drove him away with my demands. My demands were that he not cheat on me. Apparently, that is asking too much. We laughed bitterly. The dark humor of betrayed women. The 6 weeks passed. The exams were difficult, but I passed them. All of them. I received my certification in a small ceremony at the same community center. Margaret went, Dr. Stevens too, and Arthur, the professor, and the yoga girls. My small chosen family. We are proud of you, said Rose, hugging me tight. Look at everything you have achieved. With certification in hand, I started applying to professional care agencies. The response was immediate. There was demand, a lot. Especially for someone with my experience as a nurse, one agency offered me a position. Night care for a 92-year-old woman with dementia. 8 hours a night, 6 nights a week, $15 an hour. That was $120 a night, $720 a week, $2,800 a month. It was more money than I had seen in years. I accepted immediately. The patient was named Mrs. Connie. She lived in a big house in the Gold Coast with her daughter, Jessica. Yes, another Jessica. The universe had a cruel sense of humor, but this Jessica was different. Kind, exhausted from caring for her mother alone for years. She needed help, desperately. My mother doesn't sleep well, she explained the first day. She gets up, walks around, gets confused. She needs someone to be with her, to keep her safe, to get her back to bed when she gets up. Can you do that? Of course. The job was easier than I expected. Mrs. Connie was sweet when she wasn't confused. She called me honey. She told me stories of her youth that changed every time she told them. At 2 in the morning, she asked me where her husband was, dead for 30 years. I told her he was sleeping in the other room. That calmed her down. The nights were long but quiet. I read while Mrs. Connie slept, did crosswords, thought. I had a lot of time to think. I thought about Lucas, about whether he was happy in my apartment, about whether Leo ran through the hallways I used to clean, about whether Jessica had changed the furniture again, about whether they ever thought of me. One night, 3 months after starting with Mrs. Connie, Jessica the daughter brought me coffee. "Eleanor, I want you to know how much I appreciate what you do for my mother. And for me. I couldn't do it alone. It is my job. It is more than that. You care for her with affection. Not everyone does. I have had caregivers who only saw a check. You see a person." Her words moved me. Because she was right. I saw Mrs. Connie. I saw a woman who was once young, strong, full of life, who had dreams, who loved, who lost, who kept going, like me. "My own mother died 5 years ago," Jessica continued. "Well, my blood mom. Mrs. Connie is my mother-in-law, but I take care of her as if she were mine, because that is what you do when you love someone. You take care of them, even when it is hard, even when it costs you." I stayed silent, thinking about Lucas, about whether he thought the same, about whether he had taken me out of my house because he thought it was best for me. I didn't believe it. But the doubt was there. The money started to accumulate. $2,800 a month, plus my pension, plus the occasional jobs I kept doing with Dr. Stevens on days off. Suddenly I had $3,500 monthly. I paid my rent, my utilities, my food, and I had left over. For the first time in months, I breathed easily. I opened a savings account. I started depositing $1,000 every month. Not much for some, a fortune for me. It was my safety net, my freedom, the promise that never again would I be completely vulnerable. Margaret noticed the change in me. "You look different," she told me during one of our Thursday coffees. "Lighter. I feel different, like I can finally breathe. Have you heard anything from Lucas?" "No. And I don't want to know." It was a lie. Of course I wanted to know. Every day I checked my phone, expecting a message, a call, an apology. Nothing ever came, but life went on. Yoga twice a week. Breakfasts with Arthur every other Saturday. Work with Mrs. Connie 6 nights. Occasional shifts at the clinic. My routine, my new normal. One Tuesday, after yoga, Arthur invited me to walk through the park. "There is something I want to show you," he said. We walked to an area I didn't know. There was a small community garden, plots of land where people grew vegetables, flowers, herbs. "I am thinking of renting a plot," he told me. "I always wanted to have a garden, but my wife was allergic. Now I can. Would you like to help me? We could share the plot. And the harvest. I don't know anything about gardening." "Me neither. But we can learn. Together." There was something sweet in the proposal. Not romantic, exactly, but intimate. A promise of shared time, of creating something together. "Okay," I said. "Let's try." We rented a 10 by 10 foot plot. It cost $20 a month. We bought seeds, tomatoes, lettuce, peppers, flowers too, because Arthur insisted that every garden needed beauty as well as function. Every Saturday afternoon, after our breakfasts, we went to the garden. We dug, we planted, we watered. We got our hands dirty with soil. We sweated under the sun. And we talked. About everything. About nothing. One day, while pulling weeds, Arthur said, "You know what is beautiful about plants? They don't hold grudges. You neglect them, they wither. But you give them water, light, care, and they grow back. I wish humans were like that." "Some are," I answered. "You have seen me wither and grow, and it has been beautiful at every stage." I blushed. At 70 years old, like a teenager. Weeks passed. Our plants grew, small green shoots that became strong stems, flowers that opened in explosions of orange and yellow color, tomatoes that started as green dots and turned red and fat. Our first harvest, Arthur announced one Saturday, cutting 3 perfect tomatoes. "We should celebrate." "How?" "Let me cook for you. Tomorrow. At my place." It was the first time he invited me to his house. A step, small, but significant. Okay, I said. His house was modest. A 2-bedroom apartment, not much different from what I had had before. But it was full of books. Entire walls covered in shelves. History, philosophy, novels, poetry. A home built of words. He cooked pasta with tomato sauce made from our tomatoes. Simple, but delicious. We ate on his small balcony, watching the sunset. Thank you, I told him. For everything. For being my friend when I needed it most. The pleasure has been mine, Eleanor. You saved me too, even if you don't know it. After my wife died, I was lost. I spent days without talking to anyone. Yoga gave me routine, but you gave me purpose. Someone to share the plants with. The meals. Life. With the Rever One, we stayed in silence, watching the sky turn pink and orange. For a moment, just for a moment, I felt completely at peace. It had been 8 months since Lucas kicked me out of my apartment. 8 months of rebuilding myself piece by piece. I was in a good place. Not perfect, but good. Stable. I had a job. I had friends. I had a routine that gave me purpose. There were whole days where I didn't think about Lucas, where it didn't hurt. And then, one Tuesday afternoon, the message arrived. It was from a number I didn't know. Mrs. Eleanor, this is Robert. Can we talk? It is about Lucas. It is urgent. My heart stopped. I called him immediately. What happened? He is okay. Physically, yes, but he needs to talk to you. He has come to my office 3 times this week. He looks bad, Eleanor. Very bad. Thin. Nervous. He asked me to contact you. He says you don't answer his calls, because he hasn't called me in 8 months. I know, and I understand your anger, but I think you should listen to him. Just once. In my office. If you want, neutral ground. I didn't want to. Every fiber of my being screamed no. To keep my newly found peace. Not to let Lucas in again to destroy what I had built. But he was my son. When? Tomorrow at 3. I'll be there. That night I didn't sleep. Mrs. Connie noticed my distraction. What is wrong, honey? You are very quiet. Family problems. Ah, family. The best and worst of life. Is it your son? Yes. Dwizer. Do you love him? Too much. Then whatever happens, you will find a way. A mother's love has no logic, no pride. It only has love. Words from a woman with dementia who, in that moment, was more lucid than me. I arrived at Robert's office at 2:50. Lucas was already there, sitting in the waiting room. And Mrs. Connie was right. He looked bad. He had lost at least 20 pounds. His face was gaunt. Deep circles under his eyes like craters. Wrinkled clothes. Unwashed hair. This wasn't the Lucas I knew. This was a destroyed man. He saw me and stood up. Mom, don't call me that. My voice sounded colder than I intended. Robert ushered us into his office. We sat in opposite chairs. Lucas kept wringing his hands. Speak, I said. Robert said it was urgent. Lucas took a deep breath. His hands were shaking. Mom, what happened, what we did, wasn't what it seemed. Is way. Oh, really? You didn't kick me out of my house? You didn't change the locks? You didn't offer me $5,000 for an apartment worth $250,000? What part wasn't what it seemed? All of it. Everything. Mom, please, I need you to listen. And I know I don't deserve for you to, but he broke. Literally broke in front of my eyes, tears running down his face, sobs shaking his entire body. I stayed paralyzed. I couldn't comfort him. I couldn't touch him. But I couldn't watch him suffer without feeling anything either. Robert passed him a box of tissues. Lucas wiped his face, trying to compose himself. 2 years ago, Jessica's brother got into trouble. Big trouble. He owed money to dangerous people, organized crime, $50,000 for drugs he was supposed to sell and lost. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. They came looking for him. But he had fled. So they went for Jessica. They said if the family didn't pay, they would kill her. And they would kill Leo, my son. Mom, my baby. They had photos of him. They knew what school he went to. They knew everything. My God, we didn't have $50,000, but we had the apartment. Your apartment. It was worth more than enough. I proposed a plan to them. I could sell the apartment, pay them, and we would all be safe. But there was a problem. What? You. He looked me straight in the eyes. If they knew you had money, that you had assets, you became a target. They could kidnap you, extort you, hurt you to get more money. So we had to. We had to make it look like we were estranged. Like we had left you with nothing. That it wasn't worth going after you. My mind tried to process what I was hearing. You protected me by being cruel to me? Yes. And Mom, it killed me. It killed me every day. Every time I didn't answer your calls. Every time Jessica spoke badly to you. Every time I saw your messages asking about Leo and had to ignore them. I cried every night. Jessica too. We didn't want to do this to you. But it was that or risk them killing you. Why didn't you tell me? Because if you acted differently, if you suddenly stopped looking for me, they would suspect. It had to be real. Your pain had to be real. So they would believe we had really abandoned you. Tears were running down my face now. The apartment. I sold it. I got $270,000. I paid them the $50,000. The rest is in an account. Mom, in your name. I have been waiting for it to be safe. The police arrested them 2 weeks ago. All of them. That is why I came. Because I can finally tell you the truth. Because you are finally safe. He pulled an envelope from his pocket. Bank documents. An account with $220,000. My name in the header. Everything is yours. It was always yours. I was just protecting it, protecting you. And the $5,000 you gave me? It was all the cash we had at that moment. We wanted to give you more, but we had to pay lawyers, police, private investigators. Everything went to trying to solve this. I couldn't breathe. 8 months. 8 months of hatred, of feeling betrayed, of rebuilding myself on the foundation that my son had destroyed me. And everything was a lie. Well, not a lie. The truth was more complicated, more painful in a different way. Jessica? She is destroyed too. She hates her brother, doesn't speak to him, probably will never speak to him again. But we saved Leo. That is what matters. Why the laugh? When I called that day and she laughed, Lucas closed his eyes. They were listening. They had put bugs in the apartment. We had to act. Even the laughs. Especially the laughs. So it would seem we enjoyed kicking you out. Mom, I swear, Jessica cried for 3 days after that call. She hated herself. Robert spoke for the first time. I have verified everything, Eleanor. The bank account is real. The arrests are real. The story is true. I looked at Lucas, my son, who had carried this weight alone, who had hurt me to save me, who had loved me in the most painful way possible. I come every week to your old building, whispered Lucas. I sit on the stairs across the street, waiting to see you leave, just to know you are okay, that you survived. I have seen how you leave early in the mornings, how you come back late. You look strong, Mom, stronger than before. And I am glad, even if it was at the cost of us hating each other. I don't hate you. You should, maybe. But I can't, because you are my son, and I know you. The Lucas I know would never hurt me without reason. I should have known. I should have trusted that. No. We did everything so you wouldn't trust, so it would be real. We stayed in silence. The weight of 8 months of pain floating between us. Leo. He misses you. He asks for you all the time. When is Grandma coming? We didn't know what to tell him. He is too little to understand. I want to see him. You can. Whenever you want. When you are ready. I won't pressure you. I know you need time to process all this. I looked at the documents for the account. $220,000. I could buy another apartment. I could retire for real. I could have the life I had lost back. But something in me had changed. In these 8 months, I had discovered a version of myself I didn't know. An Eleanor who could survive alone, who could make new friends, who could work hard and feel proud, who could find unexpected love in a community garden with a widowed professor. I didn't want to lose that Eleanor just because I now had money again. I need time, I said finally. To think, to feel. This is a lot. I know. Take all the time you need. But Mom, please, believe me when I tell you not a single day passed without me thinking of you, without hating myself for what we were doing to you, even if it was for the right reasons. I left Robert's office in a state of shock. Lucas tried to hug me before leaving, but I pulled away. Not with anger, just with a need for space, for air, for time for my brain to process what it had just heard. I walked aimlessly for hours. Through streets I didn't know. I passed stores without seeing them. The city moved around me, but I was in a bubble. 8 months. 8 months believing a lie that turned out to be the most painful truth. My son had loved me so much, he was willing for me to hate him. Jessica, too. They had endured being the villains of my story to keep me safe, to protect Leo. And they had succeeded. I was alive. Leo was safe. But the price had been almost destroying us all. I ended up on a park bench, the same park where I did yoga, where I had planted the garden with Arthur. I took out my phone. I had messages. One from Margaret. "How did it go with Lucas? Call me." One from Arthur. "Reminder that tomorrow we water the plants. Are you still on?" One from Dr. Stevens. "Can you cover a shift tomorrow afternoon?" My life. The life I had built on rubble. The life that now made sense, but in a completely different way. I called Margaret. I told her everything. Every word Lucas said. Every detail of the bank account. Every tear. Oh my God. Elle. I can't even process it. How do you feel? I don't know. Relieved. Furious. Sad. Happy. Everything at the same time. It is possible to feel all that together. After what you have lived, it is possible to feel anything. $220,000. Margaret. I could buy a condo. I could stop working nights. I could have my life back. But I don't know if I want that life back. The Eleanor who lived in that apartment was asleep. Comfortable but asleep. The Eleanor of now is alive. Awake. I feel everything more intensely. The good and the bad. Then don't go back to being who you were. Be who you are now, but with more resources. Wise Margaret. Always wise. That night I worked with Mrs. Connie as always. I didn't tell her anything because she wouldn't remember anyway. But her presence was comforting. At 3 a.m, when she woke up confused, looking for her dead husband, I guided her back to bed with infinite patience. "You also lost someone?" she asked me, with surprising lucidity. "I see it in your eyes. That pain of someone who lost something important. I thought I had lost my son. But it turns out he was just hiding, protecting me in his own way. And now that you found him? Now I have to decide what to do with that. Love isn't black and white, honey. It is gray. It is complicated. It is forgiving even when it hurts, especially when it hurts." She fell asleep again, leaving me with her words. The following days were a roller coaster. Lucas called me. I didn't answer immediately. I needed space. But I sent him a message. "I need time. I am not angry. Just need to process." He replied, "I understand. I will be here when you are ready. I love you, Mom." Those words. I love you, Mom. It had been 8 months since I heard them. They felt real now, not empty, not forced, real. On Saturday, I went to the garden with Arthur. While we watered our tomatoes, I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. As always, when I finished, he remained thoughtful. "You know what the hardest part of love is?" he said finally. "That sometimes they protect us in ways that hurt us. And we have to decide if the love behind the wound is enough to forgive the wound itself." Could you? I forgave my son for not coming to his mother's funeral. He was in Spain. Said he couldn't get a flight in time. Later I found out he could. He simply didn't want to. Couldn't face seeing her in a coffin. Preferred to remember her alive. It hurt that he wasn't there. But I understood why. Did you tell him? No. Because his pain was real too. Not everything needs to be said. Sometimes forgiveness is silent. Wise words from a man who had lived enough to understand the gray nuances of human relationships. A week later, I called Lucas. "I want to see Leo." "When?" "Tomorrow. In the park. Neutral ground. Just him and me first. Later you and I can talk. Whatever you want. Mom, whatever you need." On Sunday at 10 a.m, I was at the park. Lucas arrived with Leo by the hand. My grandson. He had grown so much in 8 months. He was no longer a baby. He was a little boy with messy black hair and his father's eyes. Lucas let him go. Leo ran toward me. Grandma. He didn't even hesitate. He hugged my legs with the strength of a small bear. He smelled of baby shampoo and cookies. I knelt down. I hugged him. I cried on his small shoulder while he patted my head. Don't cry, Grandma, I'm here. Lucas stayed at a distance, giving us space. Leo and I played. He told me about his school, about his friends, about the dog he wanted but his parents wouldn't let him have, as if the last 8 months hadn't existed. Children have that capacity, to live in the absolute present, without grudges, without baggage. After an hour, Lucas approached. Leo ran toward the swings. We were left alone. Thank you for coming, he said. He is my grandson. Of course I was going to come. And us? You and me? I breathed deep. I understand why you did what you did. I even respect it. You protected your family, like I protected you your whole life. But Lucas, it hurt. It hurt more than you can imagine. And even though I understand the reasons, the pain was real. I know, and I'm sorry. I feel it with every part of my being. I don't need you to feel it. I need time. I need to rebuild trust. Not that you love me, that I know now, but that if something happens again, you will include me. You will tell me. You won't protect me by keeping me in the dark. I promise you. Never again. Good. We stayed in silence, watching Leo play. Two people who loved each other, but who had been broken and were now trying to find the way to fit back together. What are you going to do with the money? He asked. I don't know yet. Maybe buy a small condo. Maybe invest it. Maybe donate half. I haven't decided. It is yours. Do what makes you happy. Happy. What a complicated word. 8 months ago, I would have said being happy was having my apartment, seeing my family, living comfortably. Now I knew happiness was more complex. It was Mrs. Connie calling me honey at 3 in the morning. It was Thursday coffee with the girls. It was planting tomatoes with Arthur. It was feeling that I had a purpose beyond just existing. 2 weeks passed. I made decisions. I bought a condo. Not big like the one I had lost, but nice. 2 bedrooms, a balcony with a view of the park. It cost $180,000. I had $40,000 left in savings, enough for emergencies, for freedom. I told Dr. Stevens I would reduce my hours. I wouldn't stop working completely. I liked the work. I liked feeling useful, but now it would be by choice, not necessity. I kept my night job with Mrs. Connie 2 nights a week. Jessica, the daughter, cried when I told her I would reduce hours. I understand, but I am going to miss you. Mom too. I will keep coming, just less. I need time for me too. My new apartment was 10 minutes from the community center. I kept going to yoga. I kept having coffee on Thursdays. I kept cultivating the garden with Arthur. One afternoon, while we were cutting lettuce, Arthur said, I have been thinking about something. What? That I like you. As something more than a friend. My heart paused. Arthur, wait. Let me finish. I know we are both older. I know it is complicated. I know maybe it is silly to think of romance at our age. But I have lived enough to know that love has no age. And what I feel for you is love. You don't need to reciprocate. You don't need to do anything about it. I just needed you to know. I looked at this man, this widowed professor who had helped me plant tomatoes, who had listened to me without judging, who had given me space to heal. I like you too, I said. But I am still broken. In process. I don't know if I have room for romance. I am not asking for room. I am asking for time, that we continue as we are. And if someday, in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years, you decide you want more, I will be here. And if you never decide that, that is also fine. Your friendship is enough. I kissed his cheek. Soft, tender, a promise without words. A month later, Lucas, Jessica, and Leo came to dinner at my new apartment, the first family dinner in 8 months. Jessica cried when she arrived. Eleanor, I am so sorry. I know, Lucas explained, but I need you to hear it from me too. I love you. I have always loved you. Hurting you was the hardest thing I have done. I hugged her. I know. It is over. We are here now. That is what matters. We had dinner. We laughed. Leo spilled juice on my new sofa, and instead of getting upset, I laughed. Because it was life. It was real. It was my family, complicated and broken, but mine. When they left, I stayed on my balcony. The sun was setting over the city, orange and pink, like the poster Margaret had given me months ago. I thought about everything that had happened, about the woman I was a year ago, about the woman I was now. I had lost my home, but I had found my strength. I had lost my trust, but I had found my resilience. I had lost my naivety, but I had found my wisdom. And my son. I had lost my son for 8 months, but I had recovered him. Not the same as before. Different, more honest, more aware of the weight of love and sacrifice. The phone rang. It was Arthur. How was dinner? Good. Complicated but good. Want company? I can bring wine. I would love that. I hung up with a smile. Life hadn't gone back to what it was. It was better, more real, more mine. And while I waited for Arthur, while the sun finished hiding, while the city lit up with millions of lights, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the peace of comfort, the peace of knowing who you are, of knowing you can survive anything, of knowing that love, real, deep love, survives even betrayal when there is truth behind it. 70 years old, a whole life, and I was just starting to understand what it meant to really live. The doorbell rang. Arthur with wine and that smile that wrinkled the corners of his eyes. Ready to toast? He asked. To what? To new beginnings. To second chances. To us. We toasted. And in that moment, in my new apartment, with my new life, surrounded by people who loved me in complicated but real ways, I knew I had arrived exactly where I needed to be. Not at the end, at the beginning.